In this video, we're going to take a look at Chinese Restaurant, painted in 1909 by John French Sloan. In this painting, Sloan tells the story of a group of people seated at two tables in a restaurant. A woman is making a big show of feeding the cat, who looks up attentively. John Sloan paints an exciting story of how the woman is trying to impress the handsome, clean-shaven gentleman on the far right. We know that the other two men are not prospects for her affection, as they've both been eliminated by the white curtains, a clever metaphor of guillotines dropping down on them, and saying that the woman is not interested in these two men, just the handsome lad in the corner. Sloan also made himself a self-portrait, painting himself as the young lad on the right-hand side. He has the lead role in the object of the beautiful woman's affections. And in Chinese Restaurant, John French Sloan used a secret technique used by master painters, which I call multi-referencing, that is, taking small parts from several works of art by another artist and incorporating these parts into a single picture. Chinese Restaurant multi-referenced the artist Bartolomé Esteban Murillo. Now, this is only my opinion. This is not in any books, but take a look and see if you agree. This is the Holy Children with a Shell, painted around 1670 by Bartolomé Esteban Murillo. It's at the Prado Museum in Madrid. And here the boy standing eating bread faces the viewer like the redhead in Chinese Restaurant. The boy in the middle, who's rolling the dice, looking down, has the same angle of view as the face and head of the woman in Chinese Restaurant. And the boy on the far right, with his shirt coming down around his shoulders, is in a mirror image as the man on the far left in Chinese Restaurant. And on the left side of the Murillo painting, we have a dog looking up at the boy eating bread, just like the cat looks up at the morsel in Chinese Restaurant. Next, looking at Madonna and Child, painted around 1655 to 1660 by Murillo. It's at the Palazzo Pitti in Florence. Here the Madonna and Child both face the viewer like the seated man with the red hair and mustache in Chinese Restaurant. The Madonna's blue dress flares out to the left like the red feather worn by the woman in Sloan's Restaurant. The Madonna's red shirt makes a right angle at her collar with the arm of Jesus, like the red frame at right angles behind the woman in Chinese Restaurant. Next, looking at Sloan's reference to Holy Family with St. John the Baptist by Murillo, painted in the 17th century. It's at the Esterházy Museum in Budapest. Here, Mary has her face in the same angle of view as the woman in John French Sloan's painting. St. John, the child on the right in the foreground in Murillo's painting, has the same angle of view of his head as the man on the far right in Chinese Restaurant. There is also a shelf on the left edge of both paintings. Now looking at Chinese Restaurant's reference to Murillo's The Birth of the Virgin, painted around 1660. It's at the Louvre Museum in Paris. There's a dark wooden chair on the left side of both paintings, and both paintings have faces with similar angles of view and an animal looking up at a human holding some food. The bowl of food being eaten by the man on the far right has a color and shape much like the apron worn by the woman on the far right in Birth of the Virgin. Next, looking at Murillo's Boys Eating Grapes and Melon, painted around 1650. It's at the Alta Pinakothek in Munich. Again, there's a pet looking up, hoping for some morsel that is teased in front of them by the human. The boy on the left has his right hand pinching the morsel of food, like the woman's left hand pinches the food in Chinese Restaurant. Murillo's boy on the left has a wide collar, making his bare chest look similar to the way Sloan painted white frill on the woman's chest in Chinese Restaurant. Murillo's depiction of the boy on the right, angling toward the left, is similar to the way the man on the far right angles toward the left in Chinese restaurant. Now looking at another painting by Murillo of boys eating grapes and melon, also painted around 1650, also at the Alta Pinakothek in Munich. Here the boy eating grapes on the left has a right hand like the man on the left eating soup in Chinese restaurant. The boy on the left has a white shirt open and his chest makes a shape like the woman's rectangle of frill in the front of her blouse. The boy on the right has his head angled like Sloan's man on the far right, and both have similar shapes and colors of their dinner plate and bowl. Next, looking at Murillo's The Infant Christ Distributing Bread to the Pilgrims, painted around 1678. It's at the Museum of Fine Arts in Budapest. Here several heads have similar angles of view. Murillo's priest looks up from the bottom right of the painting, much like Sloan's cat in the bottom right of the painting looking up. The off-white angel wings have feathers like the ruffles of the off-white curtains in Chinese restaurant. The light-colored wooden staff leaning at an angle in the lower right of the Murillo painting is repeated as the light wooden chair leg in Sloan's painting, just to the left of the cat. Now looking at the Annunciation, painted around 1655 to 1660 by Bartolome Esteban Murillo. It's at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. Here, the kneeling angel faces to the right like the man in the black seated at the far left in Chinese restaurant. Murillo's kneeling angel's right wing is a similar color and shape as the curtain to the left and behind the man in black at the far left in Sloan's painting. The flying angel in Murillo's painting has their face at the same angle of view as the woman in Chinese restaurant, and there's a variation of checkered squares on the floors in both paintings. Now looking at the Murillo painting Rebecca and Eliezer, painted in around 1660, it's at the Prado Museum in Madrid. Here, Eliezer bends down and leans in to the right to take a drink, much like the man on the left drinking from his spoon in Chinese restaurant on the far left. Rebecca has her head at the same angle and in a similar location of the painting as the woman in the painting by John French Sloan. Now looking at the Holy Family with a Bird, painted around 1640 to 1650 by Bartolome Esteban Murillo. It's at the Prado Museum as well in Madrid. Here, the dog sits and looks up at the food teased by the human, like the cat in Chinese restaurant. Joseph's head is much like the head of the man at the far right, but without the beard. The arc of tan cloth to the right of Joseph's leg is like the arc of the tan-colored chair that Sloan's red-haired gentleman rests on with his right arm. The table leg in the far right of the Murillo painting is referenced by the chair leg in front of the cat in Sloan's painting. It's very common for master artists to reference more than one artist in an artwork, and John French Sloan referenced more than Murillo's paintings. He also referenced stills from the movie The Great Train Robbery, which came out in 1903. And I'm going to show you a few examples here. In this first image of The Great Train Robbery, we have a man pointing his gun directly at the viewer. He has a strong resemblance to the man with the red hair and mustache seated at the table in Sloan's Chinese restaurant. This connection makes for a more interesting story for Sloan to connect his characters to the Great Train Robbery, like his story includes train robbers eating at a restaurant while they lay low with the cash. The right angle of white at the bottom of the gunman's neckerchief is like the right-angled white curtains in Sloan's painting. The polka dots on the gunman's neckerchief is repeated as a polka-dotted floor in Chinese restaurant. John French Sloan painted the man on the far right holding his spoon with the same angle of his right hand as though he's holding a pistol directly at the viewer instead of a spoon. John Sloan also made sort of a self-portrait of the man on the far right, looking like John Sloan himself, with his pistol aimed directly at the public, with this clever painting. The next still image from the movie The Great Train Robbery, referenced by Sloan, is that of a holdup. Here, the man under the table holds his gun at the employee. He's got his right hand in a similar position as the right hand of the man on the far right in Chinese restaurant. The same looking clock is in the top left of both paintings, with a white round face and a clock frame that drops into a rectangle below the face of the clock. The dark rectangle of wall with a frame of wood around it in the middle of the train robbery still is referenced by Sloan's red rectangle behind the woman in a similar location on the back wall. The chairs are similar in both pictures, and the tabletops are also similar. In the image from The Great Train Robbery, the man kneeling with his black shirt holds up his right arm like the man eating soup on the far left in Chinese restaurant. All three men in Sloan's Chinese restaurant are referenced to still images from The Great Train Robbery. This leads to the possibility that the gentlemen are train robbers and they're on the lam, which makes for a more exciting story in John French Sloan's painting. Now there's one last thing I'd like to point out that I think John French Sloan painted deliberately in Chinese restaurant. Of course, I have no way of proving it but to show you, and that is the allegory of ships passing in the night, where the tables by the woman and by the gentleman on the far right are near tables which both kind of look like giant ships in small scale, with the black rectangular shadows beneath the tables, as though this might be the one opportunity for this woman and this man to get together, which, like the multi-references, the allegories help add complexity to the story in Sloan's genius painting. I also have a newsletter where I talk about tools for understanding and creating master art. Thanks for watching.